Of all the studios I've talked about, Paramount has to be the most disappointing. The studio may have a long history of iconic and even influential animation under their belt, but when it comes to their feature film department, this has to be the messiest studio I've seen thus far, because it just doesn't have an identity of their own. Almost every movie they made that isn't SpongeBob or Transformers 1 honestly feels like something you'd find in a bargain bin, and that's probably why outside of any film they co-produce or the SpongeBob movies, none of these tend to make a profit. And yeah, as we go through this, that'll become more clear as to why. And yes, I am only looking at the stuff made by Paramount Animation only. No Sonic movies, no Rango, not even the original SpongeBob movie. Okay, enough dilly-dally, let's just rip this bandage off so I can talk about Transformers 1, alright? That, and I don't want to be obligated to watch this in a few months.
Influencer.
Smash that subscribe button!
Yikes.
Boo! You stink!
Sponge on the Run is the most disappointing thing since my son. This is the only movie on the list I truly dare to say is bad. It's not offensively bad, or makes your blood boil bad, or even annoying bad. It's just the whole movie reeks of laziness. The entire plot is just a rehash of the first movie, where SpongeBob and Patrick must go to some far-off dangerous place to retrieve something after one of Plankton's plans forces them to. Stopping at dangerous locations, getting help from a celebrity, and stopping a king from killing someone, except now it's copying from episodes of the series itself. Gary goes missing. Haven't seen that before. SpongeBob and Patrick stop being friends. Haven't seen that before. Look, it's literally just the first movie, but worse. Worse writing, worse jokes, worse conflict, and while the animation is impressive, it's still not that good looking when compared to the first film that was made almost 20 years ago at that point. But let's be honest, the only reason this movie is CGI is because of the existence of everything Camp Coral, which this movie is a backdoor pilot to. I'm not too upset by the retcons it does, because let's be honest, SpongeBob is not known for its tightly woven continuity, but it adds a dash of corporate greed to the mix that really makes the film feel more soulless. I have heard this film underwent multiple rewrites, and every plot I've heard for it is fundamentally and objectively better than what we got. It's probably not as bad as the Sandy Cheeks movie, but when compared to every other mid to mediocre film on this list, it's definitely gone past the bottom of the barrel to the dirt beneath. Wonder Park may also be a generic backdoor pilot as well, but at least it was an original idea. The Tiger's Apprentice may be a bunch of wasted potential, but at least the potential was there. Rumble may be a run-of-the-mill monster movie for kids, but at least it's decently fun. This is just a modern episode of SpongeBob stretched out to feature length. That's all.
Wasteland? I think you mean Wonderland!
Wonder Park is definitely one of the movies of all time. While I wouldn't call it bad per se, it is also one of the most family films to ever family film in the history of family films. Almost every trope you can think of that can happen in a family film happens here. None of the characters are memorable or funny. The pacing is surprisingly bad, and it takes a long time to get to the actual Wonder Park. My mistake, Wonderland. By contrast, I was actually getting invested in this child's grief of losing her mother, and it is the strongest part of the movie. I actually felt my heart moving. Until they did a complete cop-out at the end and revealed the mother is just fine. Why? Pixar is able to get away with talking about death and other dark subject matter. Why not this? Or at least, not have the mother be completely healed but still kind of sick, as a reflection of how the darkness will forever remain in the park itself. I don't know, Wonder Park is not a terrible film, or even a film I think is bad for kids. but it is definitely the most nothing film on the list.
Oh, gnomes now.
Just going to be open and honest. I have never seen the first Romeo and Juliet movie, but it was apparently made by a separate studio, while its sequel was made by Paramount. So I am not obligated to watch the first movie. Regardless, despite its negative reputation, the worst offense Sherlock Gnomes does is be a very, very generic movie. The jokes are generic, the story is generic, the conflict is generic. And if you think this is just going to be an unending cringe fest, I'm sorry to say this, almost every joke in the trailers that could make you groan was not in the movie, so there's not even a cringe factor to it. Pretty much, it's your run-of-the-mill children's film. I do think Sherlock himself is the best part of the movie, especially with the inner workings of his mind, and Moriarty is kind of fun. I just wish he was in the movie more. If I'm being honest, I just wish it was about Sherlock, Watson, and Moriarty. They're the most entertaining characters, and not have it be some weird Toy Story-inspired crossover with Romeo and Juliet. And that's the best way to describe it. Everything Sherlock Gnomes in this movie is actually decently fun, but everything coming over from Romeo and Juliet is generic and boring. All in all, a better movie than I expected, which is why it stands up higher than Wonder Park. Both are generic as hell, but at least there was something of actual entertainment to be had here. And it doesn't have a cheap cop-out at the end, so that helps. I don't have much to say about Under the Boardwalk other than it's cute. It has some catchy tunes, some fun moments, the story and characters are nothing new, but that's Under the Boardwalk for you. Nothing much to say other than what I said before. It's just a cute movie.
Monster Trucks!
Monster Trucks isn't anything too revolutionary, but if you want a popcorn flick to pass the afternoon with, then this is the definition of that. There's nothing bad, in fact, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, and there is a lot of fun to be had. I think the idea of a literal monster truck is actually a pretty fun idea, and while the story is nothing new, it does make certain parts of my brain go brr. I acknowledge this movie is fun, but I also can't remember anything specific about it I liked. Okay, I really did enjoy the climax. Yeah, for whatever reason, Paramount makes some pretty dull animated movies, with the obvious exception. All of their films' climaxes are all really, really fun and exciting, and this is no different. But outside of that, nothing left a lasting impression on me. I might go back to it every 2 years or so, but honestly, I can see why people skipped this when it was in theaters. Like I said, it's a good way to spend a rainy afternoon, but nothing else.
The wonderful thing about tigers is tigers are wonderful things.
The Tiger's Apprentice is a real mixed bag. On one hand, this movie has some of the best looking visuals and fight choreography in the entire list. I was excited anytime these characters fought. They are thrilling, fast-paced, and it just far outdoes anything else on the list. Even Transformers 1 in that regard. But on the other hand, it is incredibly underdeveloped and has way too many characters to properly flesh out, resulting in a cast of one-note characters from the protagonist himself, to the main villain, to even the Zodiacs who, on paper, are very colorful characters, but are also really, really flat. And that's the best way to describe this movie. It's like a painting. It's beautiful to look at, but it's still as flat as the paper it's stuck to. It really hurts because this would have worked way better as an ongoing series, but instead, we got a pretty mid-movie with some decent action scenes. If you want to see an animated action film that bases itself off Chinese mythology but good, just watch the Neza movies. As for this, you can do worse, but you can also do better.
Let's get ready to rumble!
A WWE tie-in movie that doesn't suck?
What kind of place is this?
I've already talked about Rumble on Movie Pond Reviews, and my opinions haven't changed that much, so I'll keep it brief. I liked its theme of legacy and carving your own path versus overshadowing another. I like Winnie and Steve's rapport with each other. The fights are obviously the best part. Tentacular is a legitimate threat. The story is very run-of-the-mill, just Rocky but with kaiju. But overall, it's nice to see an animated movie tackle kaiju in a day and age where kaiju films are seeing a resurgence. I wish this made more money at the box office, but what are you going to do?
SpongeBob, me boy, you're 2 seconds late for work, boy.
It may not be the first SpongeBob movie, but it's still one of the better ones in my opinion. The whole film just feels like one big love letter to the franchise, and after years of SpongeBob suffering seasonal rot, it was, for the time, a breath of fresh air. While the movie also feels derivative of prior SpongeBob episodes in some aspects, honestly, I'm more forgiving of it here, as it's more so an excuse to have a non-stop hodgepodge of scenarios to throw the characters in. From a Mad Max apocalypse, to time travel, to what was advertised. Which, while the superhero bit only happens in the last third, that's still significantly more time than what the Sponge on the Run title promised. I don't know, I wasn't looking for high art, but for what amounts to a series of events loosely connected to each other, I had a fun time with it, and is honestly the second best movie on the list. Second only to one. Yeah, there was no contest. Transformers 1 is easily this studio's best movie. It is one of the best origin stories I've seen, avoiding many of the pitfalls most prequels tend to fall in, and only answering the important questions at that. The friendship between Orion Pax and D16 is great and has good chemistry to boot. And it's heartbreaking to see how they begin to split away after they learn the truth. But this also plays into the more than meets the eye message and how it doesn't always necessarily means for the best. Sentinel Prime is a bastard, and I love him for it. Honestly, the best villain in the entire ranking. He's basically a kid-friendly version of Homelander in that regard. I do feel like D16's shift into the more violent Megatron is a bit sudden, but that's honestly a minor gripe in an otherwise flawless film. It's a shame this will likely never get a sequel, as there is a lot of stuff set up or left unanswered. But if this is indeed a one-and-done deal, I'm not complaining because regardless of its future, Transformers 1 is easily the uncontested number 1. And that was Paramount Animation. With their current lineup, yeah, it's not hard to see why this studio hasn't taken off. But that's not to say there isn't potential. Transformers 1 proves this. Maybe they just are better at adapting things more so than they are just making their own original works. And hey, currently in the work at this company, they have a lot of interesting titles such as Cosmos, Superworld, and surprisingly Stray Dogs currently in production. Maybe that's what they need, just one really good title with a really good box office to break this rut. But as is, this lineup is a 5 out of 10. Hopefully my next ranking isn't as depressing.